Hi, everybody. Welcome to Attentive Teaching. I'm Cindy Schwartz, one of the co-founders. We're so happy that you're with us today as we begin a 5-part podcast series on some hot button issues that are facing educators, families, and kids today. So without any further ado, we would love to introduce our panel that has joined us today, and we'll start with Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori Valline. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm also a Attentive Teaching co-founder. Welcome.
Jen?
Hi, I'm Jen Biblowitz. I've been a school counselor on Long Island for 33 years. I'm also a licensed mental health counselor. I am currently the coordinator of elementary counseling for the Port Washington School District.
Thank you, Jen, for being here with us. Lauren?
Hi, good morning. I'm Lauren Navarra. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I work at the Wheatley School, a high school in East Williston.
Wonderful. Great to have you, Lauren. How about you, Alexis?
Hi, I'm Alexis. I've worked as a museum educator. I'm now a full-time mother. My husband and I have 2 kids. Our son is a college sophomore and our daughter is a freshman in a private high school.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here as well. And Perry?
Hi, everyone. I'm Perry Fuchs. I teach high school science on Long Island, and I'm also the president of the Teachers Union here in the same school district in which I teach. But most importantly, I am also the father of a 7-year-old daughter.
So this is why we're here. We are very interested in talking to parents and educators and admins about the impact of technology on our kids. And we focus on K through 12 today. And, a couple of studies are out there that we're really concerned about. Recent study says that, quite honestly, 77% of our schools report that they have cell phone policies, for example. And we want to explore what that is and whether parents and educators have cell phone policies, for example, themselves in their room. But today's discussion doesn't just focus solely on cell phones. We're very interested in media use, especially since the pandemic. And the studies are showing that the rise is quite exponential. So this is where we go today. And as we said, we will offer some information in future podcasts that deal with strategizing, and we will touch on that as well today at the end of our podcast. So, Lori, I throw it over to you to pose some questions to our panel, and we'll get this discussion going.
Well, okay. So, being a mental health counselor and what I'm seeing in my practice in terms of my high school students and college students having a real difficulty in terms of paying attention and being able to attend. And this seems to be one of the biggest problems because it's really interfering with them being able to stay in school, actually. Maybe not so much the high schoolers, but my college students. Like I have many that are coming out. I've been writing lots of letters about, this person, because of their mental health issues, have not been able to do it. But, I'm curious. I mean, we have here, people who are working through the K through 12. Maybe we just start with the younger ones first and see what's going on so we can have a real good overview of what's happening, transpiring through the K through 12s and, see how we're handling it. Jen, Perry, and you guys, everybody jump in when you feel like it,
So
Go ahead, Jen.
Go ahead.
So in the elementary schools in the district that I work in, they don't allow cell phones K to 5. It's very rare that you'll see an elementary school student take out their phone during class. Maybe in 5th grade, but I can tell you I have the pleasure of doing science enrichment at the elementary school level as well as teaching at the high school. And I just don't, if you want to talk about cell phone problems, like problem in class, high school, major issue, elementary, non-existent.
So our district too has not only a non-cell phone policy, but a device policy because the technology is speeding up so quickly, right? These kids have, AirPod things and they have their iWatches and they can communicate and those are not allowed in school either. And when we do find them, we would take them away. We make the parents come and pick them up. And so that's a pretty strict policy in elementary school. I will say that there is a profound effect of technology on young brains, right? So there are tons of studies that show that children exposed to screens between birth and 2 years old often later on exhibit cognitive and executive function difficulties by age 9. And so now we're dealing with the kids 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we're finding that their frustration tolerance is negative. Their ability to attend is only in short spurts, which means that you have to alter your teaching to engage them in a different way. Everything is expected instantaneously. They're not really used to working hard for something, to figure something out, get your hands dirty and really figure something out. And it's a problem that we see every day. And unfortunately, New York State standards of education, what we're supposed to be teaching at K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, has remained the same post-pandemic. And our children, we all know, are not where they were pre-pandemic. And so you have kids who are so frustrated anyway. Now they're even more frustrated because they can't close that gap. And the other piece of this all is that if children aren't emotionally available to learn, right? The pandemic has brought up a lot of mental health issues. And if our children aren't really in a position to receive knowledge, they're not stable or healthy enough, we're just spinning our wheels. We have to sort of slow down the train, focus on the mental health piece and making them more available to learn, and then introducing different kinds of learning to help fill that gap.
That's one of my biggest concerns, Jen, what you just touched on. And then, of course, I'd like to hear what others have to say, is the issue of attention and the issue of instant gratification and stimulus. As a teacher myself for over 25 years, there is no question that the ability to focus is truly problematic and has been exacerbated, of course, by the pandemic and the remote learning that was done, and the inability to stay with something. Plus, media enables kids to change the channel, so to speak, when they've had enough. And in life, we can't always do that. So the tolerance level, the patience level is such a concern. The ability to, like you said, get your hands dirty and work something out and stay with a task till completion is my concern. So I echo what you're saying. And that's, of course, why we're meeting today, too, because, again, it's not just cell phones. It's the use of TV. It's videos. Recent study in 2021 that came out in U.S. News and World Report is telling us that YouTube is the #1 avenue for kids. They prefer that over anything. And then Snapchat, and I'm reading off here, TikTok, then Instagram, Facebook and Twitter way down the line. But they like the constant video, the constant change, the constant stimuli. And life isn't always like that.
Yeah. Right. And there's the whole science behind scrolling, right? The scrolling science, which gets those dopamines going. And now we're creating people who are going to be predisposed to addiction, right? So it's
setting them up. They're so vulnerable for that. Yeah,
correct. And they're so young.
Also, the gaming is such an issue too.
Their frontal cortex that has not developed yet. They're so young. It's really impacting them in a negative way.
And then they're in school and blamed for the behavior when it is not entirely their fault. For sure. This is a societal issue that they've just been born into. And then that leads to the parenting part too, that I'd like to hear from maybe Alexis. You could speak about this, because we will talk today about how media is used in the classroom as well. And there are many positive aspects to using media in the classroom. We know that as teachers and as parents and admin, we know that. But what do you think, Alexis, in terms of this discussion? What are your thoughts?
Well, for me, when you said, Cindy, that, it's not entirely their fault, I completely agree. However, I would place a lot more responsibility on parents. And I get it. It's an enormous challenge. And I think it's become sort of an additional aspect of the job that some of us are not well equipped for and that we don't get a lot of support with. But I would definitely say that from my experience, we feel, my husband and I both feel, that parents have to play an incredibly active role in monitoring and also knowing their child and knowing what is healthy for them and what is not healthy for them. So, for instance, when we gave our daughter a cell phone, we used a family contract. We wrote up a family contract and we reread it every year. And it's no joke. We sign it, and it's an important aspect of the understanding in terms of expectations of the use of technology in our lives. And then we have the policy includes some very strict standards that we really feel have helped our daughter to thrive in terms of her own relationship with technology. So, for instance, she's not allowed to have any public social accounts. That was just a given. She has time limits on all of her apps. There's no tech use 30 minutes before bed. Her phone is charged in our office from 30 minutes before bed until she's, for the entire night. There's no sleeping with the phone. There's no seeing the phone. She doesn't get to pick up the phone until after she's dressed and eaten every morning. So there's that period in the morning where her brain is allowed to function without technology and without thinking about what all her friends are doing and where they are. And then we have her password and we check her phone weekly. So we are very much involved in her relationship with technology. And from my perspective, I would love for more parents to be more involved.
I just want to know what everybody's thinking. Is that like crazy? Like, do you think parents, you have any other parents who can do this?
I have to say that's amazing that you're doing that and committed to doing that. And I wish that you could beat the drum and get everybody to do that. But I would say that you're in a less than 1%. And that, we've all seen this, right? We've all gone to a restaurant and you see a table of 4 and everybody's scrolling. Why aren't you having a conversation? Why aren't you learning to engage in a conversation at that point and making children feel important and valued, and instead of just sticking them over there to play? And that modeling, I have kids say to me all the time, well, I drove with my mother, but she was, my dad was driving and my mother is sitting with me and she was on her phone the entire time. Or I'm home doing my homework, but my mother is talking to her friends on the phone the whole time. I have college kids who say, my mother and I drove from Long Island to my university and my mother was on the phone the whole time with her friends. It's like, to me, if I got to drive my kids to college, it was a captive audience for 2 hours. It was like, yes, I get to talk to my kids, We get to sing to the radio. We get to do fun. Nobody's talking on the phone. I don't know. It's sad to me when people do that. So kudos to you, Alexis. I think that's amazing.
Thank you. But I think the bigger issue, it's not, certainly not easy for me. I'm not always her favorite person. That's okay. But I think that the bigger issue for our family is how is society managing this? Because she does have to go out into the world and her friends may not have the same kinds of strict policy. And it is very upsetting for us to feel that there isn't support and that there's not a dialogue, that there's not a larger dialogue taking place among parents, because we are all dealing with the same issues. We're all in the same boat.
So, Alexis, that begs the question, how are your peers with this? How do your friends respond to hearing what's going on in your house?
Um, that's a great question. I am not necessarily closest to the parents of my child's peers. My circle of friends are people who are probably more aligned with the way I parent. And so I tend to, troubleshoot with them. I mean, the family contract I actually got from a fellow mother who has kids older than mine, and so I'm always looking to her as my mentor. So that I think I would say it's very much about who I talk to and who I'm with. But I am involved in my daughter's school, and one of the things that we work with carefully is we work with the school psychologist on trying to bring people to the school to talk to the parent body and the student body about these issues.
That's excellent. And Lauren, I'm wondering what you're seeing as well, and from the position you're in and how you deal with kids in terms of social work. Are you seeing these problems, these issues, and bringing parents together to talk about it? Is it fruitful? Does it bring any results?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, 100%. And I'm just like processing the conversation that we've had thus far. I think collectively we've brought up so many important points, right? The implications of technology for social development, for mental health, for learning and the ability to concentrate. Alexis, you kind of brought in a little bit of that idea of peer pressure and how we navigate that. So a few things. I think it's important to recognize the disconnect between what I guess society has coined, right? Like the difference in social media and tech use of the digital immigrant. So people who have kind of had to assimilate to this increase in technological use versus the digital natives. So when we speak about digital natives, that's oftentimes our youth, the kids who have just been brought up, always being inundated and so overstimulated. So I feel like we have to recognize how we've been accustomed to developing into this new society versus something that has just always been there for us. As far as at our end on the high school, we definitely have a digital policy and social media and phone policy use. However, it's really up to the discretion of the teachers. Most teachers I speak with, they do have a cell phone bin where they collect phones at the beginning of class. However, as I mentioned, it's really individualized. So there are many classrooms that kids do have their phones on their persons. And, the rule is you're not supposed to look at your phone during class, but no matter how many times a teacher might say to a few students that I'm thinking of in particular, put your phone away. Once that teacher's back is turned to the class, the phones are out again. And, to kind of generalize our conversation, not just to phones and social media use, which I could go on about forever, but how we cultivate a healthy balance of technology, because it's not just cell phones and Twitter and Be Real and TikTok. It's the Google Chromebooks. It's the devices that kids are given to be able to further their education. So I think it's so necessary that we have ongoing conversations on the school end. And Alexis, kudos to you at home to, normalize the use of technology, but to teach healthy limits and boundaries. So whenever I speak to my students or parents, it's interesting that we're talking about this because I just did a presentation at our special education parent council on a very similar topic. I think we really need to employ a harm reduction perspective. We can't be so completely extreme in saying that technology is all bad. Just like anything in life, we need to weigh both sides of the coin to really be able to employ those learning opportunities to show kids these are the pluses of technology. It's helped us to evolve as a society and to stay connected with each other. But these are also the negative implications. So I think it's so necessary, like I said, not to have one conversation, but many ongoing conversations. Start when the kids are young in elementary age before maybe they're even inundated with all this technology to show them what it means to have responsible digital habits.
Because you mentioned Chromebooks, I'm going to speak to that a little bit because I've been teaching for 25 years. And I have literally watched the evolution of education. And to say that we're going to, limit technology, it's not realistic. I have, my students have Chromebooks, and I actually don't touch paper anymore. I told the kids when they walk in my room, I teach high school astronomy. They will not touch paper this year. I don't use paper in the classroom. Everything is Google Class, Edpuzzle, Remind. All of the lessons are Google Slides, activities, tests are done on Google. Google Quizzes is all of the exams or PDFs that the kids can write on through Kami. So I use a variety of apps, and I'm going to tell you flat out, YouTube is an incredible teaching tool. I don't have a textbook. I haven't used a textbook in over 10 years. When I first started teaching, we used textbooks. The way that education is taught today is not the same as when we were in school. And to think that it's going to go back to that way is an outlandish notion. The kids learn differently today. Yes, I agree that technology is a problem in certain aspects. But again, we're here talking. I'd be curious to see what a high school student thinks. I was educated very similar to how everyone here, maybe Lauren, maybe a little bit younger than me, was educated. And it's just different. Education today is very, very, very different. There is a lot of value educationally in YouTube. Specifically, I mean, I use YouTube on almost a daily basis because let's say I want to explain to the children about the Fermi paradox, right? Google Fermi paradox. Here it is, 5-minute video clip. And yeah, the kids' attention span is short. It is, but and I say this to teachers all the time, if they're more interested in their cell phones, right, then the information that you're discussing in class and the information you're presenting, maybe you need to look at how you're presenting the information. Maybe you need to reevaluate what you're doing, because if you're not engaging the students, if they're more interested in their technology than they are with you, well, maybe you're not doing a good job of engaging students. And the way we teach kids today is very different than it was 5 years ago. So teachers have to evolve in their education. If they refuse to do so, they're going to be dinosaurs.
So I agree with Perry to a certain extent. I think that the way we teach is very different. The concern has always been for me when Chromebooks became universal, that the diversity, equity, inclusion issue is a big issue. Not everybody has the same connectivity. And we have a lot of students who have temporary hotspots or whatever, and they can't do their digital homework at home because they don't have the appropriate internet support. And that's a huge issue, because you're talking about equity there. And I think that there has to be a blend of both the more traditional education as opposed to, using your laptops, Chromebooks, etc.
It's interesting hearing this discussion as well, Perry, and to piggyback off of what Jen just said. When I was told in my social studies department that ebooks were what we were going to be using the next year, I was heartbroken, quite honestly, that there wouldn't be any textbook use. And I remember asking my kids, just organically speaking about it one day. Of course, I was very concerned inside, wondering, Perry, is this a good thing? Not all of that. Very, very much debating it in my own mind and wanting to be open and wanting to evolve as well. But wondering what happens to the actual art of reading. There's something about reading and highlighting and underlining, and I was just wondering. So
you can do
I surveyed my students.
You can do all this.
Yes.
You can read, highlight, you can do all the same.
Yeah. Well, and I understand that. I do completely. But I surveyed my own students, and I said, let me ask you a question. And these were the younger ones. These were the 8th graders. These are our tweens, so to speak, just on that cusp of, adolescence and not. I said, what are your thoughts? If you had a choice between a textbook and your Chromebook, and I put all your assignments on Chrome, And Perry, I just have to say, the response was overwhelming me. Please give me a textbook, because when I get on that Chrome, I want to do so many other things
Right.
besides read. And I remember going to my department chairperson and saying, I am telling you, I surveyed 2 of my 8th grade classes. So that's 50 kids. And I said, of course, it's not a national survey, but out of 50 kids, I had an overwhelmingly large amount of students tell me, I want the book. It's like, save me from what I know will happen, where I will be distracted and do other things on Chrome. Now, of course, they have gotten used to it, but this was my concern. And the distraction issue and the idea of what we call half attention. I've been reading a lot of articles about half attention, and I'm very concerned about that issue. And I bring it up again because, Perry, what are you seeing? But you're right, Perry. If you are an engaging teacher and you love what you're doing and you're passionate, your students are there with you no matter what you're using. They're there with you because you show that video on YouTube and then you talk about it.
Yep.
And you discuss it and you engage with them. It's right. The concern is, are we using technology for the class period for 42 minutes and then saying, goodbye, see you tomorrow? Because also we want connection. We must have connection with our kids. And many will argue social media, and many will argue that phones and all the tech is a way to connect. It is. This is the socialization of our children. They are connecting with people this way, but at what cost? I wonder.
It's a double-edged sword, Cindy, because you're right in the sense that technology is a distraction, but it's also tremendously powerful for education as well. And I'll just say one thing about the Chromebook in general. It depends on the district that's using them. Obviously, to speak to Jen's point, there is some equity issues on Long Island. There's no doubt, and I'm sure around the country, there's equity issues. The district that I teach in, 99% of the community has some sort of connection to the internet. It's probably even closer to 100% at this point. But also, it's the technologies that the district is investing in. So the district that I work for invests in something called Go Guardian, very powerful software. If used correctly, can be a major reduction in distraction on the Chromebooks. So my kids in my class learn day one. I say, go look on the internet for something. And then I said, okay, Johnny, I see that you're not on the right website. Why don't you switch? And they know that I'm watching them. And I see everyone's screen and I see what everyone's doing. And then the next week, I don't have any issues with it. And when I tell them that I want them to work on their CAMI assignment, I see 100% because they know I'm watching what they're doing. So the same as Alexis was saying with her daughter, just being the parent in the room. But the last thing I'll say is, the other end of the sword is when class is over and I give them a minute or two to talk. When I first started teaching, classroom was lively, talking to each other. And I say, now I give them a minute or two at the end of class. Everyone's like this, like a zombie on their cell phone. I say, hey, doesn't anyone want to talk to anyone anymore? And they're like, nope, we're talking to each other on the phone. I'm like, wow, this is freaky. This is like 1984 stuff.
And Perry, that makes me think so much about, because I appreciate your point about the incredible use of Chromebook in the classroom. And I see it for my kids as well. And it's an incredible educational tool. My question to schools is, why do students need their cell phone during the school day? If they have their access through a Chromebook, and of course I realize there are issues about whether everyone has that or not, but if they do in a district like yours, Perry, why are high school students allowed to have a cell phone during the school day? There's enough to engage them throughout the day. They do not need a cell phone.
And that is corroborated by a 2020 study. I always have to bring this in, where 90% of principals believe there must be restrictions on cell phone use. 90%. Whether they accomplish that has an awful lot to do with where this district is, who the parents are as well, and the demands of that segment of the school society.
I'll also speak to the parent community. I feel when you asked Cindy about what it's like with the peers of my daughter's parents, I feel like parents are desperate for schools to take the lead. to make decisions that the parents can say, oh, it's the school told us you can't do this, you can't do that. They're so desperate because we want to hear from the research. We want to hear from the advocates and the professionals. We want to know, how do we handle this? How do we manage it? And when they don't step up to do that, the parents are left to make individual decisions in their own household, and it's very challenging.
Well, studies are showing that they had policies prior to the pandemic, and they were much more restrictive. But the pandemic and the use of remote learning, and then kids coming back and being accustomed to using all this technology at home on their own, made it complicated, for sure. I just, and of course, we're going to revisit this on a future podcast. But so let's strategize. What's the takeaway here? In terms of, we know that, as Lauren said, teachers can have a bin. That's what I have in my classroom. A bin. Students put the phone in. I tell them the first day of school, I love you already. But this is what's happening the moment you walk in. It goes in to the bin, and then we get started. It's a big red bin on the front of the desk, and they put it in there. They turn it off, and we get to work. And then they take it. So if it's day one, that's the rule. It can be done. Like your house, Alexis, is a contract from day one. That's you have a contract, and you don't waver from that. But of course, I want to ask you if that's changing as they get older. If some of the contractual rules change. So how do we strategize? Yeah. Go ahead, Alexis.
Oh, well, the mentor I spoke of, the parent mentor I spoke of, we wrote that into the contract. We wrote in that we can revisit. If you want a new social app, we can talk about that as a family. You have to make a case for it. My daughter does presentations about, why she needs certain things. It's great.
It's great.
So, she knows she has to really make her case. So we have worked that into the contract. We worked in how it can grow with her.
I'm curious, Lauren, what's going on in the high schools in terms of the parents? Are they wanting to see more control over social media and phone use, or what? And how are you working on that with the teams?
It's hard to give you a straight answer because I would say it's really mixed. Just like I'm sure if I asked everybody on this table what their parenting style is and their values at home, it would probably be a little bit of a mixed bag. I would say there are parents who are more like Alexis, who are very diligent about being mindful of social media and tech use and having these conversations at home, setting limits through applications to monitor what's going on the phones, or setting time limits, blocking certain apps and restricting other things that they can do on their phones. And then, I would say a good portion of families as well. I don't want to say take a more hands-off approach, but feel maybe that setting limits of digital use should be done more at home versus at school. And to your point,
do they ask for help? Do they ask for help with this?
I would say I have for the parents, students that I see for counseling or I'm just in touch with, yes, I would say social media and tech has come up a lot, especially considering it seems like there have been more, let's say, issues just related to tech in the classroom, going a step further, not just within class, but social media use and bullying, harassment, things like this, which is, I think, just a general issue that's going on across middle schools, elementary schools, even and high schools across the country. But, kind of like what I was mentioning before, I think it's really, we can't minimize the impact of the conversations that we have and the seeds that we plant. So I always feel like when any issue comes up with technology or social media, I really try to instill some teachable moments related to technology and being more mindful or conscious of the time that we spent online using our phones in a healthy way. So something I shared with parents recently at our parent night on digital responsibility was how to use tech in a safe way. So if we can't get rid of it, here are some apps that you can explore to stimulate your mental health or to, help with learning. So there are so many different applications I think that could really better our educational success, our physical health, our emotional health, that it's important to not just overlook those. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I would just say really continuing to plant those seeds. Also, I'm thinking of you, Cindy, and how would describe how you would run your classroom, creating those quiet moments. So yes, teaching those important learning lessons of tech, the pros and cons, how to use technology safely, but cultivating quiet time, whether it be time in silence, doing a meditative activity, just having all of us, not just students, but teachers and adults for that matter, having that time to reflect on our day.
Yes, I always had that moment, especially with my younger students, of meditative moments, especially those who came in the 8th and 9th period, the end of the day. We would start class with this beautiful Zen type music. And I think it is a strategy because it shows connection, and it shows that we can live without that. And like you said, Lauren, finding balance. And like Perry said, this is not going away. And technology, think of history, the invention of the car. There was all this concern that young people were going to, people in the early 1900s thought, oh my gosh, where is my child going off in this car? What is a car? I can't keep track of who they're with. And these concerns are historical. Parents have always been concerned about how their children are doing. But yes, quiet meditative moments of connecting to show our kids that there are other things out there that can connect us. It's not just the phone. And to have those moments together, very important. Any other strategies, last strategies that we want to put out there? We've got the contract arrangement that Alexis had, which is awesome. We've got, obviously putting a bin on the table. We've got meditative work. We've got, as Perry said, the concept of balance as well that can be used in productive ways and make your room engaging so that a student doesn't want to be on that phone immediately.
I think
any other thing, Jen, you've seen that would work in terms of strategizing or help for parents or kids or families?
So we are always trying to engage parents, and I like hearing that parents want more instruction in this place, but I haven't seen it, to be honest with you. Like, we just ran a cyberspace, like a cybersecurity and cyberspace night. It was 1 hour. It was open to 3rd through 5th grade parents. Should have been, there were, in that catchment, there's like over 1,000 kids, and 45 parents showed up.
Mm.
So you think about that, like, where's the importance? Why aren't you thinking this is important? And then in March, we're running a parent university, and we're going to have another technology piece on that. And, you have to keep drumming it home. But the other thing that we're finding is that parents need to learn this for themselves first, because especially during the pandemic, parents were bashing teachers online in their Facebook pages and school pages. It was disgusting. We were all like fighting for our lives to try to make school whatever we could make it without jeopardizing our own health and well-being. And they were not kind. And then that becomes really hard to come to work when you're experiencing that. And so I think it's important for parents to understand that they're the first line of defense. They are the model. They need to put down the phone. Make sure that when you come in your house, there's a bin. You put your phones in the bin so that when you're sitting around the dinner table, there's no distraction. That the message you're giving is the most important people are sitting around this table. And it's really hard to do that. And we keep trying as counselors and social workers, principals, we keep trying to help parents to understand that. But I guess, the scrolling, the addiction is real, and it's not easily remediated.
Well, don't you also see, Jen, like, especially with the younger grades, more so that it's also, keeping children occupied right? So it's really easy. I went out to dinner last night, and there was a table with 4 kids. Every kid had a device and was sitting there. There was no conversation between anybody. And I was just like, oh my God, what an opportunity. But, I think it's like a babysitter for a lot of people, right? It keeps them occupied. You don't have to engage with them. And, parents we're all like living in this very stressful, intense world. And it's very hard to stop for a minute and say, oh, wait, yeah, I do need to have a game night. I need to play charades, or I need to go for a walk, or we need to go for a hike. We need to get on our bikes. We need to do some artwork. We need to listen to music and dance.
Right.
I see that it's a big struggle for people with younger children. And then, of course, moving into the middle and upper grades.
But that just breeds that inattentiveness, right? That breeds that instant gratification, right? If those parents would have had a little mini backpack and it had a few Legos in it and some crayons and some paper and then a little puzzle, and let the kids figure it out. Uno, whatever, however old they are, right? And then maybe even engage with them in that way. And it's teaching social skills. It's teaching empathy. It's teaching how to engage with one another. Our kids right now, they don't even know how to play together anymore. No. They are so disconnected. We have to undo all of that to get to a better place.
Is that part?
I think it takes a lot of courage as parents to do that, especially with little ones. I was at a family wedding in the fall, and I also was shocked at how the children who were invited, the children who were guests, were all given a device. And it dawned on me later that it's a hard thing to do as a parent to stand up and say, we're at a family function. No one is going to use a device, and you can be bored. You can have to talk to other adults. You can have to learn how to do that. It is difficult. It's challenging, but that's what that's what a family function was to me when I was growing up. I didn't have the escape to hide. I had to talk to the awkward uncle or the grandparent, or, I had to sit next to a teenager I didn't know and try to figure out how to connect to them. But as a society, we haven't supported that message that you can go to a family function and say to your kids, no devices.
Right. But it also, think about the underlying message. The underlying message is shush, go away. Mm-hmm. Shush, go away. We don't want to hear from you. Yeah. Go sit over there and play. We don't want to hear from you. You don't matter. Right. No, they matter. They can contribute to having fun at the family function.
Right.
100%. Yes, Alexis.
I want to give you a positive thing, positive point. Someone mentioned that they wanted to hear from high school students, and we were recently on a family vacation, and my college son was talking about the use of his phone and technology for himself in college. And I was shocked when he shared with us that he has just begun to selectively close some of his social media accounts. And when we asked him about it, he said it wasn't just that they were becoming a time suck and that he could recognize that at 19, but he also expressed that the content was becoming disturbing to him. Mm-hmm. And he could make that own choice for himself and say, like, that thing I saw, it stayed with me and it screwed me up today, and I'm distracted and I can't do the work I'm here to do and talk to the people I want to talk to. And so I do think it's interesting if we could start to talk to that generation who are just beginning to become a little more critical of what it's meant in their own lives.
Mm.
That's a great
yes. As we come to an end, and of course we'll pick this up more in future podcasts. There was this other article that came out from the Carnegie Foundation, and they talked about a teacher who tried an experiment in his classroom, and he asked his students to keep on their phones. He actually said, keep on your phones. And for 40 minutes, he said there were 600 notifications among the students on their phones, 600 different notifications. He said, that's what I'm competing with. So on that note, we look for balance. We'll talk more. Certainly, there are wonderful things about technology and things we have to be aware of, and connecting is what we want to do. So here at Attentive Teaching, I want to thank everybody so much for being here today and connecting with us. And the conversation continues. And we welcome our audience to drop us a note, let us know what they think and how they strategize and deal with the impact of technology in their families or their classrooms. So thank you so much for being here. Lori, any last words?
No, we learned so much. I mean, everybody contributed so well, and it was so wonderful to hear all your points of view. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.